So, a lot of people think that you need a ton of money to invest in real estate, and that's not always the case. I want to give you a few pointers as to how to get started. Nate and I have been married for 15 years now, and when we first got married, we were working at Liberty University as RDs. We were not making much money at all. I think it was like $18,000 a year back then. We were both living on campus, so that did help having some of our living expenses covered. But we still found ways to save a little bit of that money, and we just lived very frugally. Definitely didn't eat out a lot, didn't have fancy cars. We were cautious with our spending. We had a budget that we stuck to. And also, we did spend a little bit of that on travel. That was something that we have always been passionate about. So we did set aside some money for that. And then we set aside money for paying off school debt and maybe credit card debt that we had back then. So we were really intentional about our spending. And then going into looking for a house, we were frugal again in terms of saving up money for a down payment. This was back in 2012 when we bought our first home. And one of the number one criteria for our home was finding a house that had an apartment. We really wanted a house hack. We'd been listening to Bigger Pockets and my dad, who's a big investor out in Montana. And so for many years, we'd been thinking about that, or for a couple of years, I guess. And we wanted to get into house hacking so that we would be able to have somebody else pay our mortgage. And so that is what we found back in 2012 in a really great neighborhood. And we went in, we got a house for a really great price, put in, I think, 10% down payment back then, gosh, or 20%. I can't remember. I need to look back at those numbers. But anyways, we were able to put the down payment. We got in and put a ton of sweat equity into that house. It was a lot of work fixing up the entire house. It's a 3,200 square foot house with 5 bedrooms and a great apartment in the basement, but it needed a ton of work. And so we have literally touched every square inch of this house, painted it all, redone floors and 3.5 bathrooms. We completely redid the kitchen upstairs and part of the kitchen downstairs, new, countertops, and painted everything, put in new appliances. We put in new lighting everywhere, no door handles, put a patio in the back, widened our driveway, like landscaping. We have not had to put a new roof on yet. That is coming, I know. Some new HVAC. And we even put a mini split downstairs. I mean, it has been a lot of work, a ton of work, and also a lot of money. But the reason I'm telling all of this is that we did get renters in the basement. And I learned to be a property manager, and that rent almost pays our mortgage every month. And so it is amazing to see how our hard work and having this extra space has really paid off. Now, it doesn't have to be a basement. It could be, you might have an apartment above a garage, maybe just a small studio unit that you could utilize. You might have like a big shed in the back that you could turn into an apartment. There's so many different ways to use your space and to make some money from it. And so definitely consider that. And maybe it's not even an apartment. Maybe it's like a couple parking spaces that you want to rent out to somebody that needs to park a boat or something, depending on your size of your property. And so definitely think about that. That's an easy way to get into real estate that is probably not going to cost you a ton more than what you're already spending on your housing. When you think about, finding a property that has some type of accessory dwelling unit within it or outside of it. And so I definitely recommend looking into that and house hacking for maybe your first rental property. And then what we did was we had all this equity built into our property over time due to the sweat equity we put in, all the work we put into it, the money that we had put in to just renovate it, and then appreciation over the years, the property's really increased in value. So years ago, we decided, hey, we actually have paid off our house now. We were, before I turned 30, Nate had this incredible goal of paying off our house early. So we really put a ton of money into paying off that principal. We were completely debt free, which was awesome. But then we realized, our money's not really working for us. We have all this equity in our home that we could actually put to work. And so we decided years ago to do a cash out refinance. Now rates were a lot lower back then. I'm not saying you should do that now, but we pulled all that equity out and we went and bought more rental properties and also invested it passively as well in some deals. And so think about that as well. That's another way that you could put your money to work. And again, I'm not suggesting that you go and pull all that equity out and have a massive mortgage. Every situation is different, and you have to think through your situation, what you can afford, and how much equity is there. You got to look at closing costs, interest rates. There's a lot that goes into that. But that's another way that you can utilize sometimes money that you have on hand that you don't really realize is there. So that's been tremendously helpful for us. And I hope that these tips are helpful for you.